Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's time to talk the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City today, guys. We've been talking so much about Beverly Hills with Garcelle, Diana Jenkins, New Jersey, Teresa Giudice. So today I thought it might be refreshing for y'all, for all of us, to talk a little bit about what's going on in Salt Lake City and Jennifer Shah's case that she just pled guilty to, guys. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I'm definitely trying to keep growing. Go ahead and like my video. It definitely helps, and turn those notifications on because you guys never know what's going to be going down in the Bravo community, and you want to be up to speed. You got to turn your notifications on. Oh, sorry guys. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. Ronald Richards, even though he won't come out and confirm the lawsuit about Erica and the spelling manner, we can still depend on him for posting PDF files that are court docs that people don't normally pull unless if it's someone they are able to go onto the county clerk's site and pull the records, but Ronald already does that for us, okay? So a couple of things I want to talk to you guys about, because we're basically getting the entire transcript from the day in court when Jennifer Shah pled guilty. So I'm going to kind of give you a couple of things that I thought were really interesting that I thought you guys might want to hear. One thing we have to remember in sentencing, when someone is changing their plea, she basically went from all gun-ho, I'm not guilty, to, okay, Your Honor, I'm guilty. So the judge, she's almost having to convince the judge that she is guilty, that she's not changing her plea because someone is pressuring her. She's not changing her plea because she, doesn't understand her rights, that she is actually doing this because she has committed a crime and she's pleading guilty. So the court also wants to reiterate that if she has a backdoor deal with prosecutors, which would mean that her attorney and the prosecutors met and came up with a deal as a recommendation to the judge on Jen Shah's behalf, it's very possible that they said, okay, you plead guilty, we're going to recommend 14 years to the judge. He usually takes our recommendations. And so they make this deal behind closed doors. When they go to court, all Jen has to do is plead guilty, and the judge accept that plea. And then the prosecutors would make the recommendation for the amount of time they think Jen Shah should serve. And a lot of times the judge will go by that recommendation, and a lot of times they won't. You never know. And that's what the judge is telling her. Listen to what he says. He says, do you understand that if yourself think you know what your sentence is going to be, you are wrong as well? Because he's saying nobody knows what you're going to be sentenced. Do you understand that if your attorney or anyone else has attempted to estimate or predict what your sentence will be, sentence as in what she will be sentenced to, as in prison, probation, house arrest, parole, etc. So predict what your sentence will be, that their estimation or prediction could be wrong. Do you understand that? She replies, yes, Your Honor. He says, do you understand that if you yourself think you know what your sentence is going to be, you're wrong as well? She says, yes, Your Honor. He says, the reason that is, I'm the one who's going to sentence you, Miss Shah, and I don't know what your sentence is going to be. I just simply don't know enough about you, about your upbringing, about your financial situation, about your educational background, your business background, any criminal history you have. I know essentially nothing about that. So I don't know what your sentence is going to be. And if I don't know what your sentence is going to be, and I'm the one who's going to sentence you, then nobody knows what your sentence is going to be. Do you understand that? And she says, yes, Your Honor. Do you understand if I do sentence you to something that you are not expecting, or something that people have told you you are going to receive? In other words, if it's different from what you are expecting or what other people have told you you're going to receive, you still are going to be bound to this guilty plea, Ms. Shah, and you won't be able to withdraw it. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. So the judge is basically saying, I know that these deals go on between prosecutors and attorneys all the time. They're always going back and forth with each other. But he's saying, I'm not the kind of judge that plays. I'm going to make my own decision. He's talking about a They're going to do a background on her, a pre-investigative background on her history. They'll go back until her childhood. They'll want to know about any assault she could have endured, her childhood, her parents, her grandparents. They'll do all of that. They'll want to know her entire background. The judge will. So I found that very interesting because I really thought that he was speaking to her in a way that he was saying without saying. Like, it depends on what you get sentenced. You can't withdraw. You can't say, "Oh, I made a mistake now that I know what you're going to sentence me." Yeah, not going to work. She can't pull it out then. Also, the guideline may range from 135 to 168 months stipulated by the guideline. I want to take you guys over here to where she actually talks about some of the crimes that she committed, right? So this says, do you understand that in this agreement you've admitted to forfeiture allegations with the respect to count 1 and agree to forfeit to the United States $6.5 million in United States currency? She says, yes, Your Honor. Do you understand that in this agreement you also agree to make restitution to the victims of your criminal conduct in the amount of $9.5 million? Yes, Your Honor. Do you understand that you have to agree to waive any defense based on the statute of limitations with respect to any prosecution that's not time-barred by today? Yes, Your Honor. Now, let's get into some of the juicier stuff, okay? The judge, like I said, she basically has to convince the judge at this point why she went from a not guilty plea to a guilty plea. So he gives her the opportunity to speak freely, which, again, this doesn't happen a lot in criminal court. This is not civil court where you get to speak your piece. Like, if she's not going to a jury trial, he's going to ask her to speak like one time, and that, like, this is it, and maybe one time before sentencing. So he says, why don't you tell me now what you did? Read slowly. When people are nervous, when they read, they tend to read quickly. I need the reporter to be able to take it down. I need to be able to process what you're telling me. The defendant says, yes, Your Honor. She says, from 2012 to 2021 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere, I agreed with others to commit wire fraud. I did this knowingly, providing customer names to people who were marketing business services that had little or no value. However, I knew the purchasers of these services were misled about the value and why they bought the services. We used interstate telephone and emails to market and sell these services. Furthermore, while doing this, I knew many of the purchasers of these services were over the age of 55. I know this was wrong. I know many people were harmed, and I am so sorry. The court. We're more than 20 people over the age of 55. I don't know what the statutory amount is. I think 20, I believe. I'm asking the defendant. So they go back and forth about that. Now, what she was saying was basically they were misrepresenting themselves to people and selling. They like to get you on a monthly subscription, right? Because then that way, every single month, they're charging a credit card. They're taking money out of a checking account. It's a continuing payment for them, okay? So they sell a service to people maybe that are retired and want to start a business, right? And so they're going to give them classes and advice on how to start a business. So for 6 months, they're going to pay $29.99 a month, right? And essentially, they never can get out of that subscription because people don't necessarily know that you can go to your credit card company and do a charge back. These companies don't want you to know that you can charge stuff back. They have a very difficult time fighting it, especially if it's something like this. Let's see here. He goes back and forth about the representation of the product that they were selling. And he reiterates it was a misrepresentation because it had little or no value. Is that what you're telling me? And she says, yes, that's correct, Your Honor. Ms. Shah, when you did these acts, did you know that you were doing was wrong and illegal? Yes, Your Honor. It says... Now, the prosecution is speaking. They're saying, Your Honor, the defendant to proceed with trial, the government anticipates that the evidence would show that between approximately 2012 and 2016, the defendant primarily acted as a lead broker responsible for selling victim information to other sales floors, that she shared in the profits that those sales floors earned when they lied to the victim. That means she wasn't only selling the people's information, she was also selling it to another sales floor who then she would get a profit from their sales because she gave them leads, right? We've talked about leads before in other videos, but just to kind of give everyone on the same page, whenever you're on the internet and you put your name and address and phone number in for an email to sign up for Texas Roadhouse app or whatever the case may be, when you put that information in there, that website gets that information and they sell that to people who want to sell you things. That's how people call you. That's why you have bogus phone numbers. That's why you get, emails that are bogus. This is a very lucrative thing that people in sales do. And sales can be cutthroat, guys. It can be so cutthroat. And these brokers like Jen Shah put so much pressure on the little guy who is on the sales floor working 8 to 8, trying to make their quota of sales. And then they are forced to lie to people. Because that's what it sounds like here. Jennifer was selling the leads, selling the contact information of people over 55 whom her sales floor had already sold them a product that had little to no value. Then she would take their personal information and sell it to another sales floor who's maybe selling something completely different. And they're going to reach out to the elderly person and also try to sell them something that has little to no value. And then Jen Shah will cut a percentage of that as well. Let's see here. During the time period, the government would introduce evidence that the defendant was made aware of several Federal Trade Commission lawsuits brought against the sales floor that the defendant worked for or worked with that alleged these floors were engaged in deceptive practices. The government would further show that between 2017 and 2021, in addition to acting as lead broker, the defendant owned and operated a Manhattan-based sales floor called Mastery Pro Group. The judge says, Mastery Pro Group. Yes, Your Honor. In that role, the defendant oversaw the sales floor herself, handled victims' complaints and chargebacks, and supervised salespeople who directly lied to the victims of the scheme. Told you guys. She was aware the government would show through witness testimony, electronic communication, screenshots on her phone, and other evidence that the salespeople that worked for her lied to victims about their ability to make money in their home-based businesses. The value of the products that her business was selling to those victims and others was misrepresented because there was no value. While the defendant was operating Mastery Pro Group, the government anticipates the evidence at trial would show that the defendant became aware that other individuals engaged in similar conduct, that is, operating biz op sales floor, were criminally charged in this district. And the evidence would show that the defendant communicated with her co-conspirators about the fact of these critical charges and that she and her co-conspirators took steps to conceal the operations of the Mastery Pro Group and the financial records associated with it. Guys, this is crazy. This is really, really crazy. This is like she had her hand in a lot of mess here, and other salespeople were starting to get popped by the government, and so what they're claiming is because of that, it put Jen Shah on a high alert, and for that reason, her and Stu and the people, the other people, the co-conspirators, were operating in a way to so the government didn't know what they were doing. The financial records would further show that the defendant only received payment from Mastery Pro Group in cash through the use of a company credit card and through payments made by the company for a New York City apartment that she lived in and other goods. Oh yeah, guys, there's another juicy part I'm gonna get to, but it's not now. Sorry. One of those days, guys, just suffer through with me, right? Um, let's see here. So, of course, they're going to show that they had encrypted applications to communicate with co-conspirators. Her and the co-conspirators took steps to move the operations of certain aspects of the scheme offshore. Offshore, and her co-conspirators incorporated several businesses in Wyoming to conceal the ownership of those businesses. So they have a lot of evidence here, guys, a lot of evidence. The Federal Trade Commission to conceal her role and scheme that she provided. Let's see here. What else? They say, as I said, Your Honor. I hope you guys are enjoying these court records. This is pretty much a deep dive, so I will put that in the notes for anyone that doesn't like long videos, because I am kind of digging deep into this court docket, guys, and I don't want to miss anything. So hang tight if you don't like long videos. This one is not for you. Go ahead and keep it pushing. Okay. The government says, as I said, Your Honor, prosecution. This evidence would include financial records, including records showing cash withdrawals from the business bank accounts matched to large structured cash deposits in the defendant's bank accounts, her text messages, her emails, her screenshots of communication on her phones, communication with co-conspirators, including about victims. That's because when the victims would do a chargeback, that would come right back to her, and she knew it, so they would have to figure out what to do. The government would also offer other evidence, including recordings made by the co-conspirators about the scheme, lease documents from the business reflecting the defendant's name, and finally tax returns showing that she intentionally underreported her crime proceedings by hundreds and thousands of dollars over several years in an effort to conceal her scheme. So she was also lying on her tax documents, guys. That's not good. That's not good at all. Of course, my Wi-Fi went out, so we'll jump back to the end of that here shortly. But I wanted to also go over something else with you guys. Now that we know everything that's going on, I wanted to tell you in the beginning of this, the judge, of course, like I said, wants to make sure that the defendant, which is Jen Shah, has a sane mind, and that the decision she's making, obviously, is something that she understands. They don't want an appeal, right? Because we know that that takes up a lot of time. It takes up a lot of paperwork. So knowing and anticipating that she's going to receive a prison sentence, they want to eliminate the possibility of an appeal, okay? So that's why it's important that the judge understands and makes sure that the defendant understands everything that's happening, what will be a result. And so they make sure that the person is in a good frame of mind, and they ask them about their mental history. Have you ever been have you ever been in the hospital? Have you ever been, to an inpatient facility for mental health or addiction? So Jen Shah says that she never was an inpatient. She never went to inpatient rehab. She never went to an inpatient mental hospital. But she did, in fact, seek help for her alcoholism and depression. So I'm going to read these transcripts verbatim, okay? And guys, this is nothing bad. It's just showing us how much more relatable Jen Shah is, right? Because we all, I think, are in a day and an age where we can relate to people that have depression, and we definitely can relate to people masking their depression, whether it's with alcohol, whether it's with food, gambling, sex, drugs, whatever the case may be. I think we all have our own demons, and we know what they are. So, no judgment at all on my end, and hopefully not from any of you as well. I don't think that this shows a weak person at all. I think that it shows, she's struggling. She's in a rough place. She's about to go to prison. She's had to put her not had to, but she has her whole life on a national television show. And that's that's kind of like a good and a bad at the same time. It's bitter and sweet. I mean, Tamara Judge even said it herself. You like the show, it gives you lots of money, lots of clout, lots of attention, and VIP this and all that sort of thing. But at the same time, you're selling your whole life. You're selling your mental health. And so it can be not always a good thing. And because she's in a spot where she's pressured because she doesn't have financial means right now, that's even more pressure that she has to do the show. And she has to show what's going on. And basically, just imagine like the worst entire day of your life, okay, I would probably say getting charged and booked into jail or going to prison is probably one of the worst days of someone's life. Like, I'm sure Teresa Giudice would like put, the day that she went to prison up there as like number 3 worst thing that ever happened in her life, right? So imagine the worst day of your whole life, and then imagine it being plastered all over national news outlets, internet, everything, right? So it's not easy. We saw Teresa and Joe Giudice go through it. It wasn't easy on their family, and in this situation, Jen has kids. So hopefully, I think viewers will find some compassion for Jen, not understanding for her crime by any means, not saying that she doesn't deserve a consequence, but I think by human nature, when we see someone suffering, we can be empathetic, and we can relate, and that's what I think maybe we should try to do here. But you guys comment how you feel. That's just my opinion. I want to just bring this to light, right? So the court says, Ms. Shah, do you understand that you are now under oath, and if you answer any of my questions falsely, your false or untrue answers may later be issued against you in another prosecution for perjury for making a false statement? The defendant, Jen Shah, says, yes, Your Honor. The court says, how old are you? She says, 48. Where did you go to school? How far did you go in school? 2 years of college. Are you able to read, write, speak, and understand English? The defendant says, yes, Your Honor. Are you now or have you recently been under the care of a doctor or a psychiatrist? She says, no. Have you ever been treated or hospitalized for any mental health or any type of addiction, including drug or alcohol addiction? The defendant says yes. When was that? She says 2 years ago. Was it inpatient? No, Your Honor. What was it for? It was for alcohol and depression. About 2 years ago? Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. But were you not hospitalized for it? She says no. The court, in the past 24 hours, Ms. Shah, have you taken any drugs, medicine, or pills, or consumed any alcohol? Your Honor, I have taken 2 of my prescribed prescription pills this morning. Be either of them affect your mental cognition? She says, no, Your Honor. I did not say that right. Is your mind clear today? Yes, Your Honor. Are you feeling all right? Yes. You have an attorney? Yes. Who is that? Goes on to name the attorneys. And then he asks both of her attorneys, do either of you have doubt in Ms. Shah's competence to plea at this time? And they say, we don't. We think she's competent. So they want to make sure that she's, in a right frame of mind, understands her charges, understands what, she's going up against, what her sentence could be, what all of her charges hold, their time frames. They just want to make sure that she understands all of that, because once the judge sentences her, there's no more objections, there's no more filings, there's nothing. There is waiting on a bond so that you can be transported to prison. That is it. Okay, that's it. So it's a hard time right now, I'm sure, for her and her family, and that's why I kind of gave my opinion a little bit ago about trying to find a little bit of grace for Jen Shah. But yeah, it's pretty crazy what's going on with everything they're accusing her of. Just to kind of close it up for you guys. Every one of her people that she allegedly was doing this to, they were over 55. Then she would take advantage of them by misleading what she was selling them. And then she would sell their information to a different sales floor where brokers would call that same list, those same people, get them to sign up for a product that didn't exist either. And then she would take a portion of those sales as well. She also had an apartment in New York City. I just thought I would tell you guys that. I know we mentioned it back in the transcripts, but I wanted to make sure that you guys heard that he did say she had a apartment in New York City. Also, so crazy that she went to get help for her alcoholism and depression 2 years ago because she would have been filming. Just seems like a strange time to go on a reality show. She was grieving about her dad, and then she went on the show. I don't know. What do you guys think about this? Please comment below. What do you think about Jen Shah going to prison? There's lots of rumors that Mary Crosby could be on her way back to the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. We've seen blind items start popping up. We know that they need a really big personality to replace someone like Jen Shah, because I'm not saying she was carrying Salt Lake City, but I'm saying she was a really, really big part of the franchise, really big part of the franchise. So in order to compare to that, you would have to have some ladies that already had a rapport with one another, and you need a big personality to come in there. And I think that they think Mary Crosby could be that for the housewives. But my thing is I don't think she's someone who's going to cooperate and she doesn't want to film, she's not going to film. Just like she didn't film the reunion, right? We talk about the fact that there are housewives, if they have lots and lots of money, then sometimes when they don't want to film, they don't film, or they just quit the show, or they don't do the reunion, Lisa Vanderpump did do a reunion, but she did it solo. But any of the other housewives we've ever seen that bolted on the reunion never, ever were asked back. So that's why these rumors and blind items are something that we're questioning. We're not really believing these all the way, because it's still early for Salt Lake City. We don't even have a trailer yet. We know that they wrapped up filming a couple of months ago, but I don't think that they are casting yet. Do you guys think they are? I mean, they possibly could be, because maybe Jen Shah and Heather were bringing a lot of drama this year, and so they're really panicked because Jen Shah was such a big part of the storyline. I'm sure with her prison, her sentencing, her court dates, what her family is going through, there's a lot of drama, and everyone's probably jumping on the gravy train, because like we know with the other housewives, the more that they can be supportive of someone else who has a lot going on, the less they have to share about themselves. So we know that, right, guys? But anyways, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, turn those notifications on, and we will talk soon.